Everyone. Thank you. Welcome to Day 2 of Leading Together Dialogues 2023 on another interesting panel discussion titled Indigenous Heritage and Decolonization, the Naga Repatriation Journey. I am excited to share that we have some interesting panelists reclaiming cultural heritage. As I introduce the moderator and the panelists for today, I request them in language from the Cotton University, Guwahati. Currently, he is working on memory studies as a lens in understanding historical fiction. Nonetheless, he is a multitasker and a man driven towards his goals and dedication. Lastly, Mr. Phule is not new to Tetso. He is a faculty member in the Department of English, currently on study leave to finish his research. Next, I would like to welcome on stage our first panelist for today, Dr. Phule Pune. Dr. Pune is a consultant psychiatrist who is also a student of Tetso College from BA 5th semester from the Department of History. He is from the Ao community.
A very good evening to each and every one of you. To the Indigenous Heritage and Decolonization and Naga Repatriation Journey, a panel discussion. Before we begin, I would like to request our operators to show us two videos. Now this two video, one is on the base as in why we have started the process of repatriation. So it's a journey of how the proposal for the repatriation of human remains have been proposed by the Pitt Rivers Museum. And the second is on how repatriation has been taking place in different parts of the world. So I request the system to show the video one after the other.
Were taken either without the consent of communities, or they were human remains, ancestral remains, that should never have been put on display. So in July 2020 we took the human remains off display from many different parts of the world.
When we removed the objects from display and the references on labels that were problematic, we got a small team of people together from the glam packing team, so we documented them properly for the originating community, and then they were all packed in acid-free boxes.
Remains, however, were collected by two colonial administrators, Hutton and Mills, and they collected in Naga collections here at the Pitt Rivers. We've removed human remains from the displays, but there will still be on display objects that have elements of human remains.
Naga community for not having reached out earlier. We have these ancestral remains. We know that Naga communities will be the ones who know best how to take care of these Naga remains, who might want them back. So the
project of bringing back Naga ancestral remains to the Naga homeland. And as part of that process, I have been working in order to understand not only the collection, but also how might we engage with different Naga communities.
The repatriation, the reparation, and the process of healing in addressing and in bringing back our ancestral human remains.
that some of these objects were taken as part of a colonial legacy. They were part of a sort of very violent past. And to do that work of redress, of societal healing, is really what museums are spending a lot more time on and thinking about.
A Native American tribe in Minnesota recently welcomed home 5 of its ancestors, more than a century after their remains left the state. Their burial sites had been looted by a white landowner who took them to Connecticut. The remains sat in a basement until state officials stepped in, hoping to right a wrong. As Native American
moved from their graves in Minnesota, 5 Dakota ancestors finally came home. Dozens of members of the Prairie Island Indian community gathered at a burial site an hour south of Minneapolis. It was a sacred ceremony, one we were not allowed to film. The ancestors were carried down the hill as drums rang out. A ceremonial fire was lit, and their remains were placed on scaffolding in the open air. This lasted 4 days, as is
to do is to come together as a community and put together this burial practice to welcome relatives back. It's an unusual story. There aren't many instances where human remains that were excavated in the 19th century have survived this long.
Historian Paula Maravellis researches the area where the ancestors originally were buried, Lake Minnetonka, on the western outskirts of Minneapolis.
Lake Minnetonka has a heavy concentration.
Acquired an entire island on Lake Minnetonka. He renamed it Phelps Island and built a lodge. It was also home to 2 Native American burial mound groups. The lake was considered sacred to the Dakota and other tribes who used it as their final resting place.
Almost 500 mounds at Lake Minnetonka that were.
In 1902, Phelps lost ownership of the island. He had already moved back to Colebrook, Connecticut a few years earlier. It's believed he took with him Native ancestors who were buried on the island. Their remains were given to the Colebrook Historical Society a decade ago when his descendants sold the house. According to the Colebrook Historical Society, the family made no effort to hide the fact that he brought the bones back after he destroyed the American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. It requires institutions that are federally funded or located on federal land to identify and return indigenous ancestral remains and objects to the native nations to which they belong. But 33 years after it became law, anthropologists like Carlton Shield Chief Gover says compliance is falling short.
Museums are too.
Public investigations and government entities still had not repatriated large numbers of Native American ancestors. The law doesn't address Native remains in private collections, as was the case with these ancestors. That
this
helps
much is good
explain
enough
why
for
it
this
took
video.
so long.
Can be stopped. Yeah. So I think by now we have some basic idea as to what we're going to discuss. So the indigenous heritage and decolonization, the Naga repatriation journey. This morning I came across an Instagram post where it said, never mock someone who doesn't know how to speak English properly. It shows the existence of his or her dominant language or the first language. That sparks the existence of his or her own identity. At some point, I felt my mind is so colonized that I felt the requisite to be able to speak English properly, more like the native. So it was, today I feel rather blessed. On other occasions I would feel a little nervous, but today I feel rather privileged and blessed to be a part of this discussion and be able to share my thoughts. I will be your moderator as well as the discussant for this session. And I have, before giving the stage to our other three panelists, I have also prepared something to present, and I have titled it as Repatriation as an Ethical Exercise, a Decolonization Project. When I first looked into what repatriation really is, I read it as repatriation as the returning of things or person to its country of origin. It may also refer to non-human entities like currency of one's own country, as well as the return of military personnel to their place of origin following a war. Then I thought, why repatriation? Why is it a post-war duty or a responsibility? So then I looked into what is war. Then the sole purpose of war is to and if there is a sense that there is not another mutually agreeable solution, you should have right intention, it should be the last resort, it should be proportional, you should not be greedy even when you fight war, just only to see if it fits the purpose. We see colonialism today, and I think it is even more worse than war, because it has structurally overtook everything that belongs to the colonies and replaced everything with something that is foreign, and they are not even sorry about it. Let's look at the post-war. Interestingly, after war, there is a time where soldiers and other properties are repatriated and exchanged. It includes taking the soldiers home, whether dead or alive, giving back cultural items which are of national heritage or of cultural significance, and these practices are followed as an honor to the cultural custodian, who are the native people. Dead bodies are returned in their homelands, considering the fact that they belong to the soil from which they originated. As a right, they are honored, declared as martyrs, and their works are enumerated. Now, who would consider a thought of calling the dead person's name, his achievements, his life history, and paying him his last respect? It is always the families and the people he was surrounded by, because it is they who knows best and who knows what to do next. In 2019, the Nagaland government commemorated the 75th anniversary of the Battle of Kohima with the theme Remembrance, Reconciliation, and Rebirth. 79 years have passed now since the battle. But today, the communities still look out for the remains of the departed. The government of Nagaland has been assisting the Japan Association of Recovery and Repatriation of War Casualties, JARRWC, in excavating remains of Japanese soldiers across Nagaland. Hence, we know the theme of repatriation is not new for Nagaland government. Repatriation has a sense beyond simply a cross-national conformity or any humanitarian duty, but more so it's because these artifacts, war items, or other items taken during invasion, or even human dead bodies, find no meaning in a place from where they do not originate. When these items are returned, restored, and given back, this item regains its meaning and purpose. The dead bodies, when buried in their homelands, is said to have brought back the sons of the soil to its rightful place, and with him carries the inheritance of the soil, the heritage, the bloodline, the lineage it embodies in all manners. In a Naga community, when a person dies, it is a requisite for his or her community to look out for the remains, so that he may be honored for the last time before he is sent off to the afterlife. It is widely considered practice, which shows why honoring the dead is very necessary. These practices vary among communities. For example, in our last visit to Mon, the RAT, that is Recover, Restore and Decolonize. It's a research wing under Forum for Naga Reconciliation. We visited Mon to speak to the communities, and we learned about caring and nurturing of the dead bodies. So we learned that the dead bodies are kept on the tree, that it may not be taken away by the wild animals. Now, it also varies from village to another village. And the Konyak tribes are considerably one of the largest tribes here in Nagaland. So we learned that the dead bodies are kept on the tree, that it may not be taken away by some wild animals, while also on the tree it serves as protein for the birds and other animals. From an eco-critical lens, it appears to be giving back to nature from where it had originally originated. More like the food cycle. After all the flesh are fallen off, the skeletal remains are carefully washed and boiled. Once it's clean, it is kept in an earthen pot to be carefully preserved. Repatriation. Repatriation is important as it shows respect for the death, for cultural beliefs, and for the hurt it has caused to source communities because of the development of science and museum collection. Repatriation is a way of looking at restoring meaning and purpose, a remedial method to what colonialism had done to the rest of the colonies. With colonialism was also supremacy of the colonial regime and oppression of the colonized. They took away any properties from the then subjects as per their likings. With these stolen artifacts were born narratives which vehemently misrepresented colonial culture and knowledge. One example is The Naked Nagas by C. von Vorher Heimendorf. It's a book which solely depicts Nagas as naked. With this also attributed various forms of cerebral and intellectual deficit, describing Nagas as backwards. But what most didn't know was the rich culture and design that was used in Naga textiles, which shows the utility of clothes and other forms of apparel since long. Decolonizing involves refabricating these narratives from the native point of view and giving it an indigenous sense. It is an attempt to deconstruct the Oriental image of colonial narratives which was written and imposed on the subservient. Repatriation is a process of looking at the ownership, by which it means giving back what belongs to the owner. Most of which are kept in museums will now be given back to the rightful owner, as most museums have come to realize that museums are not the owner of the property, but have rather unethically kept these artifacts, violating all forms of human and cultural ownership. It is a generous and humane act to right the wrongs of the colonial past and see civility and progress in the common source of ownership in all manners of sharing and imparting knowledge. This discussion is not new, especially for an institute like Tetso. We have had focus group discussion, and various students have shared their opinions and also voices. Out of the many, I think we have two brilliant students who will be sharing their reflection on the idea of repatriation, that is Intiong and Ayuleke. And also to close the discussion, I would ask Dr. Muli to take over one after the other. So I would request Intiong Ayule to first give the presentation, after which it will be followed by Dr. Muli's comment and discussion.
Kalukashe, that is greetings from my Rengma dialect. Greetings to all of you here. I am very humbled and honored to be sharing the panel with respected sir as well as my very own friend Yimti today. I am looking forward to really learning a lot from all of you here today as well. I have titled my very short presentation as My Personal Growth with Repatriation. Although I grew up in Nagaland, I was born and brought up in Nagaland itself, I rarely had the interest, or it never crossed my mind to actually dwell or deeply think about my roots and my identity. As we talk about repatriation, in the past I have come across through books where it was written about this artifacts being taken away from us, but due to lack of my sensitivity, I did not really ponder upon it, and I was only struck with the need to think of and ponder upon this issue after attending the Morong lecture that was in 2022. Also, this very incredible event, Leading Together Dialogue 2022, that was held in the month of September, hosted by Stella Maris College, Chennai. It was just a few days before my flight, before I flew to Chennai. I was getting ready and checking out my traditional attire that I was supposed to be wearing on the first day of the conference. As I was trying to understand the significance of the designs, the colors of my attire, I reached out to my elders who were of my parents' age, as well as some few older to them. Sadly, I realized that most of them of my parents' age did not have much knowledge regarding it. I started questioning, if this is the situation right now, what about the next generation? Will they lose their roots? Will they find home? It was so disheartening to me that it ignited something inside me. It made me want to dwell deep into studying the ornaments and culture of my roots. This led me to open a small traditional ornament business where each customer receives a pamphlet with a few paragraphs and of the indigenous practices and history of Nagaland and our identity, which also promotes our culture. It's my own very way of preserving our heritage and ensuring that it is not forgotten. This is a picture from leading ornaments that I studied about. Yeah, next. Yes, these are pictures from the interviews that I took for my recording. And there is another one as well, yes. Thank you very much. Those are some of the pictures. Okay, so for a young member of the Naga community like myself, repatriation holds immense significance. It is a key turning point in our journey to cultural reclamation. It encompasses our deep desires to reclaim our roots, our unique identity, and our sense of dignity. It is not merely about bringing back those artifacts, but reclaiming a vital piece of our history, a narrative that got jumbled up due to colonization and turbulent historical events. Repatriation, it firstly reinstates a sense of pride and connection to our roots. These relics hold stories of our ancestors, their wisdom and ways of life. Bringing them back is like restoring missing chapters from our cultural narratives. It allows us to reconnect with the repatriation is a powerful stance against cultural exploitation and appropriation. Our artifacts have often been displayed in museums or private collections abroad. It challenges the notion that our cultural treasures can be taken away from us and asserts our right to ownership and preservation. Lastly, these relics are invaluable tools for the young to generational gap and provide the opportunity to learn, appreciate, and carry forward our cultural legacy. It's like passing down a torch it's a way for us to honor our ancestors, preserve our tradition, and ensure that further generations have a deep
Nunuk Achakdin Salam Nimsataper, which means greetings to you all in my Ao dialect. Good evening, everyone. My name is Yimtiong Longkumer, and I think by now most of you would have a gist of what repatriation is, what the process entails, and with so many accomplished people, and also to be speaking in front of all the delegates, all the guests and teachers as well. So I please. Yeah, so that's the report. Yeah, but before I start, I think I would just like to describe how repatriation has really helped me, because I, from a very young age, did not spend my time in my hometown, and I became very detached from my culture. I did not. When I came back to Dimapur and settled in an area with more of my Ao peers, the thing is, I spoke a lot of English, and in Shillong, that is. So when I came back here, struggling to form this bond, to connect with my own peers, from my own community. So over the years, I tried to, my friend Ayuli mentioned that we attended the Smorong lecture on repatriation. So that was the breaking point for both of us. We took different approaches. Mine would be on the survey, and hers was on a more personal experience and perception of repatriation. So yeah, I'll just discuss on what the survey data is. So the purpose of this survey is to assess the awareness levels, understanding perceptions, and then gauging the potential impact, and also enhancing the public engagement and public discourse. Please, next slide. Yeah, so the methodology that I used. So I aimed for about 100 respondents, but luckily I just got 86 respondents, of which there was 53 males and 33 females. So the area was particularly Tetso College, and so the selection of sample was among the college students, and they were randomly selected. The tools and techniques were, I used online questionnaires through Google Forms, and then I used Google Sheet as well as MS Excel, and for the data, and also for the quantitative data analysis. Yeah. So yeah, these are the tables for the sample. Here you have the thing, and yeah, this is the departments as well of the students. Okay, so going to the first graph. Yeah, it's fine, it's fine. Let's just start with the first graph. Yeah, so the first question that I asked was, how did the respondents learn of Naga repatriation? So you can see that 46% of the respondents got the information from newspaper articles. And so this shows that traditional media, like newspapers, play a very important role in sensitizing and spreading awareness. So, and 33% also is from the interviews, both online and offline. So we see that people are actually interested to come and watch interviews. They want to learn. Now, in the others, this would include like group discussions, college presentations, or even personal interactions. Can you go next? Yeah. And coming to what came to mind when they heard the phrase repatriation of Naga culture, you can see varied opinions, and it's well divided as well. So 41%, 30% of the respondents took this as return of stolen goods or looted cultural artifacts, and 39% gave importance on the cultural education. So why this mixed responses? The thing is, repatriation was a relatively new concept to most of the students. And so this is why they have a lot of varied perceptions and opinions towards the phrase repatriation. Very good percentage, 67% of the respondents knew about the cultural artifacts, whereas 33% didn't know. And 33% is also a very significant percentage. And so, yeah, it was a not important but significant thing, because you can see that there is a very close percentage, right? 55% said bring them back, whereas 45% said keep them in the museums. This was because of the varied perceptions. I interacted with some of the respondents, and the reasons that they gave was for the people who said keep them in the museums, they said that these museums would have better infrastructure, and also people from abroad would get more exposure to the indigenous communities. So they believed that it should be kept in museums. Whereas the 55%, they said that that was their cultural identity and it was necessary that they brought it back. And Ms. Ayule has also given a lot of reasons as to why we should bring it back. Yeah, can we proceed to the next? Oh yeah, so these are just some of the challenges that the respondents conducted the survey. I think there was not much information because it's a new topic, and as we started as the RAD team and FNR as well as they started doing these seminars, that's when more information started coming out. So there's a lack of information, then resistance from museums or collectors. This I guess won't be there because the Pitt Rivers Museum did approach for the repatriation thing. And then legal barriers came at 17%. Yeah, can you just quickly go to the next slide? Yeah. So we asked them, do you think that repatriation of Naga culture could have a positive impact on Naga community and the region as a whole? Here as well, 64% said yes, 35% were unsure. So why? My observation is that since this was conducted among college students, what I believe is that right now the younger generation, they have a very different experience of history as compared to our grandparents and forefathers. Artifacts, these human remains, and so this could be the reason why many are unsure if repatriation could bring a positive impact. And yeah, there was also 1% who believed that it would not bring an impact. Going to the next slide. This is almost similar to the previous question. Do you believe that repatriation of cultural objects will help preserve cultural heritage of Naga people? So 77% said yes, 21% were unsure, and 2% voted no. So all of these varied opinions and perceptions are important because this would help in the repatriation process. This would help us understand the steps to take in order to make repatriation more understandable and maybe the process a success as well, even though it may not be, even though it may take time. Yeah, so I think I'll go on to the key takeaways of this survey. So we see that there are varied perceptions and mixed opinions. The perceptions of the students during the time of repatriation was association to the protection of sacred sites, then education and awareness programs. The mixed opinions was that 77% supported repatriation, where like 21% were unsure. going on to the sources of awareness and artifact awareness, yeah. Traditional media like newspapers, interviews played a significant role, whereas the artifact awareness was that 67% were aware of the Naga artifacts being displayed in external museums. And yeah, the challenges that would face were lack of resources, information, then legal complexities and resistance from museums. Impact on cultural awareness was that they had 64% had believed that it would have a positive impact. Next slide, please. And yeah, 55% preferred bringing back the artifacts, which showcases a very strong desire to reclaim cultural heritage. There is need for comprehensive approach, that is inclusivity, understanding mixed opinions, which I tried doing when doing the survey, and these discussions, these panel discussions that we're doing as well. These are times when we can share our opinions, and so this is also a step towards that. Then educational efforts addressing knowledge gaps. This initiatives like today's talks would help bridge the gaps, and importance of public engagement, which we are doing right now, and as well as the RAD team who have been engaging with different communities. They've been engaging and making this process a community-led process. Also, yeah. So those are the key takeaways. I'm so sorry because I'm also in a hurry. Yeah, that's it from my side, and yeah, that's it.
After Dr. Mulli's discussion, there will be Q&A. So there will be volunteers around with a pen and a paper. So if you would like to post questions, you can write on it. If not, a microphone would come across. So you can always raise your hand, the FNR and the RAD. So it would be so nice to have your insights with the engagements. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, I would like to thank the panelists for their brilliant presentation, both Ms. Anjule and then Im Ti-yong. And when I just stand here, I'm getting a deja vu experience seeing Christy dear and Dr. Dolly, you know, deja vu experience of being in Melbourne for. But anyway, I take the honor and privilege to be in your midst, and I thank the organizers for giving me this privilege to share something with you from the FNR side. It was through Dr. Dolly that we came to know about the Naga human remains in Pitt River Museum, and it was the Pitt River Museum who wanted FNR to take on the responsibility, considering the fact that we have been doing some works on reconciliation. So therefore, the journey has taken off from there, and today, when I stand here and think about the Naga human remains, our ancestors, you know, and I think that if our ancestors were not there, I don't think we'll be here today. But saying that, once I was in the National Museum, I think that was in school days, National Museum in Kolkata, and I saw the skeletal structure of a dinosaur, and a huge thing. So when I really think about our ancestors in the Naga human remains in Pitt River Museum, I get a feeling that the Nagas were introduced to the rest of the world in the skeletal structure, not the human structure. But now today, when we think about the repatriation of those human remains, I think we could get a different perspective from the moderator as well as from the panelists. But from my side, what really amazes me is this, that it gives me it makes me feel that the repatriation has opened a door to the kind of mental trauma that our Naga people have suffered. You know? And that mental trauma is not just, it's not just for talking sake. It has very wide consequences. And if you look into our Naga history, we know that the Nagas were the only people who resisted the British imperialists for 48 years. Okay? finally, those days there are no roads to Kohima and all like that, but they have to bring a cannon from Assam on an elephant's back. Just imagine how, I think the British imperialists were also quite surprised at how Nagas could go on, you know. So anyway, what I mean to say is that we have gone through a history of struggle and militarization and conflict and all that kind of thing can definitely cause, you know, can definitely leave behind a kind of a mental trauma. And one may think that mental trauma is, if I face, you may think that it doesn't go to my children, you know. But then there are studies now to show that mental trauma can be intragenerational or intergenerational. For example, there was a study done in New York on the children of the survivors of the Nazi death concentration camp during Second World War. You know, those survivors who have migrated to New York and they were living. So the psychologists and the psychiatrists did a study on the children. Then when they did the study, they found that these children had very high vulnerability towards mental health issues, mental disorders, okay? Which also inclusive of addiction also. So the people who are doing the study were surprised as to how these children should have that. You know, because the children were never exposed to the Nazi death camp concentration in Germany or in Poland or elsewhere. How? No? So they decided to do a study on the parents. When they did that study, they found on the parents that the parents were continuing to suffer from guilt and shame of surviving, you know, and their parents also had very high expectancy on their children, and the parents had very high sense of insecurity. So you see, the children did not know, and children did not live in Germany or in Second World War, but because of the parents, that trauma that they have gone through, it was being passed on to their children also. So I would really think that the sort of this repatriation of our ancestral, ancestral remains from Pitt River Museum has actually opened a new door for our Nagas to become aware of our own mental health. I'm not trying to overdo it, but I feel so because what happens is, if we do not address this mental health issue, what can happen is we can continue to suffer from guilt and shame. And if we are to be having guilt and shame, this will definitely have it'll really lower the self-esteem of any Naga individual. And it could also take away our confidence to face challenges or to respond to challenges in the appropriate way. No? And then it can also, the mental trauma can also be in the form of anger and resentment. So anger and resentment, usually what happens, it causes trust deficit among friends or among relationships. One can also suffer from doubts and fear. You know, the intergenerational trauma from the colonial imperialism to after the British left, the Nagas had made themselves very clear that as you leave us alone to determine our own future. In fact, I was interacting with some intellectuals from Manipur and some Meitei writers. They said, when the rest of Northeast India were slumbering, how did the Nagas, and we always thought that the Nagas were primitive, but how did the Nagas came to such a realization that they would like to determine their own future this one day ahead of intention to our history? So I would really think that this repatriation has really opened the door for us to have faith and desire for power. But they had a very wise mechanism to address. Sometimes I think we talk so much about corruption, but when you talk about corruption, I think you have to find its root, and maybe you'll find something in the trauma that we have gone through. So I would just like to share with you that much, because why I emphasize on the mental health aspect here on what that repatriation has opened the door is because neuroscience is quite clear today that 95% of our behavior is controlled by our subconscious. It's only at 5% we are conscious. You know? I'm consciously speaking to you, and I'm sure you're consciously listening to me in spite of a talent. But there is only 5%. 95% 95%, I wouldn't really know what is going on in your subconscious in the 95%. So we have to come to an awareness about this and then try to, through this.
I would like to thank our three panelists to actively participate in asking your questions and doubts. We have students from
You know, in the videos, like, do you notice that it?
I was just thinking the other side, because for us, our people, when someone, if it was a German or a British or anything, if we were to bring their skeletons or others, human remains and keep it in Nagaland, I'm sure we'll do very well. But we have passed that opportunity.
So they are both senior members of RAD and FNR, and they have been spearheading community engagements here in Nagaland. So if you would like to post questions.
I'm Joshi and I'm from Savitribai Phule Pune University. My question was that is the process of repatriation, which is occurring right now currently outside by the West, as we saw in the video by Pit Rivers.
Hello, yeah. So the Pit Rivers Museum, they decided that it was not ethical. They wanted to decolonize their museums. So that was the main reason they decided to, come and interact with these indigenous communities in order to repatriate.
Dr. Akam to also give his comments on this. He's over there.
No more exhibited. They have been taken down. So all the human remains, the Naga human remains, as well as the human remains that were being exhibited in the Pit Rivers Museum, has been taken down and now are in process. For me, so it is a process that is in the making. The question of whether there's genuine consciousness and having is this something that will lead to transformation of not just relationships, but
we have about 2 more questions we can discuss.
From the moment that I was waiting from the before, I raised this question in my mind. Then I was been searching people to ask this question. So finally I got a chance. I was supposed to ask last night, but due to some busy work, so I couldn't ask. So this the question that I really want to know, that is possible. In our area where I belong, so in our area, our Christianity, just because we are to the human cult, that it remains. That because we are Christians, so would it affect our Christianity? And what is the differences? What will it affect? How will it affect the
repatriation efforts and the broader decolonization movement?
Okay, so
for me, I find it very difficult to answer that one. I don't have just an ancestral way.
And they all belong to the same group, or rather in Australia they call it same mob. And most of them have lost their affinity towards, so that is one. Then a question, I think there are repatriations is done and is looked at from different lens. We have seen, in my personal experience, I think I am so fortunate to say that I had the opportunity to visit the School of Design, where the institutions have played a major role in sort of bringing about repatriation. I would like to hand over the time to Dr. Dolly as well.
The repatriation. It is an international initiative, both at the level of international diplomacy and within the government of India, to make sure that what has been stolen and taken away under duress during colonial India is brought back. This week, there is a diplomatic crisis between Greece and have a different take. They are not saying that keep it in the United Kingdom because they are so beautifully kept at the British Museum. They are in the CNN. So I want to give a context to our students here that the theme of this year, Indigenous Knowledge and Sustainability, is right here for us to explore. How is it that we open our minds to other things which we might not come across in textbooks? And I think that issues that are important is this we underline. How is it that young thinkers like you really get into first the process of understanding really deep, troubling questions? India has enough money to buy many, many Kohinoor diamonds, Kohinoor-like diamonds. But why does it want the Kohinoor diamond? Little different. And we look at the Naga repatriation process, something that none of perhaps the Indian papers have covered except for the Indian Express. And it is up to you to go back to your colleges that you have learned something new here in the 2023 theme on the last, and how many of us know about it. And I hope that your visit and your participation here in this panel allows you to think about that and allows you to actually hear some of the young Naga minds in this room going through the process of troubling questions. Should we really bring back the Naga ancestral human remains? What are the processes of ethics that themed leading together? And I'm so glad that I can see a lot of you nodding your heads, and I can see a lot of you in deep thought that today, at this moment, we learn from this conference a new term called repatriation, and that perhaps will lead us to a new journey, and that you consider this mighty effort. Our ancestors' human remains were stolen from our land, and we are trying to bring them back, not in a sense to exhibit and to make money out of it, but in a sense to understand what does it mean to have a dignified end. What does it mean to give a proper burial? Think about any funerals that you must have attended, your friends, your loved ones, your grandparents. Do you think that the first thing that comes to your mind is to exhibit them and hang them on the walls? It is not. And I think this in itself is the moment for decolonizing, not only for our Naga participants here, but for all of us as delegates, as leading together and walking together. So I hope that this small reflection that I give you all from my heart as one of the organizers.
Thank you, ma'am, for your beautiful insight. In fact, I think this brings us a lot to understand, and also it awakens into us the consciousness to have the solidarity towards our past and to appreciate this pursuit of repatriation, which is not simply about physically bringing back the human remains, but also may we all take back the spirit to question the existence of whatever we are in, whichever we are at. I would like to thank our panelists for the insightful discussion, and I would like to thank the audience for your patience and for your keen listening. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Full session, and I believe that all of us are taking something from this very session. And thanks to all the respondents, to the panelists, to the moderator as well for sharing your experiences, your thoughts, and your observations, which are very much needed at this point of time. And I'm sure there are still many questions, there are still many queries, curiosity from the attendees. Writing on stage, Neha Borogaon from TIS Guwahati and Satyam Rathore from SPPU to give their reflections and takeaways from today's discussion. Keeping the time frame of 5 minutes each, I now request them to kindly take their time one after the another.
Khulumbai Baikhoba, it means greetings in my Bodo language. My name is Neha Borgao and I am from TIS Guwahati. So, as I belong to the Bodo tribe, I feel a real connection faced by the Naga people and recognize the challenges in preserving cultural heritage and asserting identity. The desire to protect traditions and have control over one's life is a universal aspiration shared by many indigenous communities. So the sentiment of not knowing innovation and the impact of external influences. It's important to acknowledge these realities and work towards preserving and revitalizing indigenous language and cultural traditions. We should learn and speak our language from childhood. If we start speaking our language from childhood, we will learn and respect it, so will our future generations will do. It's better to teach them when they are child than try to shape later. This is how our culture and indigenous language will continue to thrive. Last but not the least, I personally believe creating a world where every culture is respected and valued is a noble and essential endeavor. Embracing diversity and promoting cultural understanding can lead to a more inclusive and harmonious global community. It's through collaborative efforts and mutual respect that we can strive towards a future where all the cultures are respected. Thank you.
Johar to everyone. So, while we are talking about decolonization, I feel it is important to talk about the de-Brahmanization. So, I belong to denotified tribe, right? So, when I look at pre-British era, so we have been, I read a book recently, which is a Marathi translation of Hamlet. So, there was a word, derogatory word of a tribe which was used in a derogatory manner, right? So this book was written by an upper caste person. So upper caste person can say he is indigenous people, right? But in Western context we can say he is indigenous. But in Indian context, he like it is very difficult for the tribal group to say that we are really till the 8th and 9th standard. So Sanskrit is a mainstream language. Why don't they make compulsory some language which is an indigenous language? They are what we consider as a painting. They draw the paintings on their wall, but they don't call it as a painting. And people are bringing this painting into their homes and portraying somewhere. But they are resisting to that act, and the same is happened with the Warli community. So I think whatever has been stolen from them should be returned to them. Yeah, that's all from my side.
Thank you so much, Ms. Neha and Mr. Satyam, for sharing your reflections. With this, we have come to the end of our panel discussion today. Now I request everyone to kindly proceed to the reception area for Chahakatsa, which translates to tea break in Rengma dialect. Soon after tea break, we shall gather back in Lauren Hall at 5:30 p.m. sharp for the cultural evening, which is the last event of Leading Together Dialogues 2023. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Chạy các chạy cả nó chơi cái